Uh, so basically, we will start with one of the array problem, which is very common and which is most frequently asked in an interview question. So the problem is called as subarray sum equals k. So the problem statement is basically given an array of integer, which is nums, and an integer k, which is basically expected sum. Return the total number of contiguous sum array whose sum equals to k. So we will see through the example itself. For example, the first one, there is an input of 1 comma 1 comma 1 and the k is equal to 2. So the question is saying, okay, I need some continuous subarray whose sum is equal to 2. So we will see how many subarrays are possible. So if you see this, like this is the first possibility of subarray, then the second possibility is this. So there are two positions like 0 comma 1 and then 1 comma 2. These are the two positions which are basically resulting in a sum of 2. So output is 2 in this case. For example, uh, take second example where the input array is 1 comma 2 comma 3 and expected sum is k equal to 3. So if we add two elements from the front 1 comma 2, it result in 3 and the last element also is equal to 3. So we do not need any other element in the continuous subarray. So there are also two possible continuous subarray whose sum is equal to 3. So hope that the question is clear now. We will discuss around the approach and then we will start discussing the solutions also. So what would be the approach to solve this problem? So suppose if I will talk about the brute force approach first and then we will move forward. Okay. So just give me a second. Okay. Everyone can see the my screen, right? So first one is basically brute force approach where we talk about, okay, what we will do is we will take two for loops. One is basically to find the start point of a array and second for loop is to find the end of a particular subarray. So the start and the end will give you a subarray part. And then in the subarray, what we can do is we can traverse that subarray, find the sum and see if the sum is equal to k or not. So we will go line by line through this code and then we will try to understand what we are saying. So if you see this, the first one, basically this for loop, this one here, it is giving you the start point of a subarray. So initially the start is 0 and the end point initially is 1. Now we have a subarray of size 1, which is basically size 0 to 1, which is basically two elements, and I need to check whether the sum is equal to k or not. Right. So this for loop is basically checking only the 0th index because start is 0 and it is less than end. It means we just check for the first element right now. So if the first element sum is equal to k, then we will say, okay, this is one of the result for me. And I will basically mark here in the if condition itself. Then the next time I will go again for this for end loop where end will change to 2 value. So initially it's 0 comma 1, then it's 0 comma 2. Now this 0 to this for loop is will basically run for 0 comma 1 for the second loop. Now it will check two elements and try to basically get the sum of these two elements and we will compare here whether it's equal to k or not. Okay, now this is the very brute force approach where basically you use two for loops just to get a subarray and the third for loop just to get the sum of a subarray. And then we basically compare with the k and then we return the number of possible subarrays. And this solution time complexity is order of n cube because of these three for loops. The first for loop, then the second nested for loop and the third nested for loop. So the overall time complexity for the bus case will be order of NQ. And here we do not take any extra space in this solution. So space complexity will remain order of 1 only, right? Guys, any question around this approach? No? Okay.
Nishant, can you explain one more time?
Okay, so basically, what we are trying to do is, like suppose I have an array which is 1, 2, or 3. Okay, let me basically write an example also. So suppose this is
Okay.
my array. Okay,
Okay.
now I need to basically find k is equal to 3. I need to find a
Okay.
sum, basically a continuous subarray whose sum is equal to 3. So what I will do is, I will take this as a start element. Okay, this as a end element. So
Okay.
this for loop is basically what we are trying to do is we are trying to traverse from the start and when it's less than end. So we will traverse only the
Okay.
first element and we will see whether 1 is equal to 3 or not.
Okay.
Okay. So basically
Mm-hmm.
at the every iteration, we are trying to find a subarray and then trying to get a sum of a subarray and trying to compare it with the k value. So the next time the end will increase again here because of this for loop, the end will increase and now end will become 3. So now this sum for loop here, this one marked with a red line. Now this will basically run 2 times, which includes 1, comma 2. So total sum is 3. Now we will compare 3
Mm-hmm.
is equal to 3 or not. So it's true. Then basically I will get count as a 1. Now the next time, just a second. Okay, now, oh, just a second. Yeah. So now, basically, while traversing from start to end, we will be able to find one subarray whose sum is equal to 3. Now the start will change from here to here and end will become this. And we will try this logic again and again until we find all the subarrays here because of these two for loops.
Okay. Got it.
So that's the logic.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other question? Okay, then let's move to another approach, which will be little bit optimized from the solution. So current solution is of time complexity order of n cube. Now we will try to optimize the solution to n square. Sorry. So what we can do is we can utilize the information that if we are able to calculate the sum at every like when we traverse our array, just give me a second. Yeah, sorry guys. So I was saying, okay, so what we need to do is now we need to basically calculate a sum of our array at every point of a like till previous, we will basically consider the sum of all the previous element and we will try to store at the particular index. So that would be our logic because what we want to do is we want to basically get a sum of our subarrays. So instead of determining the sum of an element every time for every new subarray considered, we can make use of a cumulative sum array. So we will declare one sum array and then in order to calculate the sum of elements lying between two indices, we can basically subtract the cumulative sum corresponding to two indices to obtain the sum directly. So instead of like first finding the subarray and then trying to calculate the sum, we will what we will try to do is we will basically have a sum array which basically store the sum till a particular index. So basically we have like sum of I and sum of j. So suppose if I need sum from j to I, so what I will do is sum j minus sum I. That will be my subarray sum. So I do not need a extra for loop just to calculate the sum. So that will reduce my complexity from order of nq to n square. That's the logic here. Let me basically try to explain with the coding part. So the first for loop is basically we initially define an array sum whose basically in which only one element is there, which is called 0. We assigned with 0 only, and we will utilize this information to calculate the next sum for the all the elements. So suppose when we basically traverse this array from 1 to array length, we will be basically storing all the elements sum from 1 to array length only. So this, the first one is sum I minus 1, which is basically I is equal to 1. So sum is 0. Sum 0 values is 0. And nums of I minus 1, which is the first value of an array. So let's take an example and we will see what will happen. Okay, this one will work. Okay, so I will take the same example 1, 2, 3. So this sum array initially will have only 0. Then when we traverse this for loop with I is equal to 1, then it will insert and then basically we will append one more value into this array, which will be 1. Then again the for loop will go again and we will basically insert one more value, which is like sum I minus 1. So 2 minus 1 is 1, which is sum this 1. Now we will basically 1 plus nums of I minus 1, and nums of I minus 1 is 2 minus 1, which is 2. So this becomes 3. So every time what we are trying to do is we are storing the sum of like this I equal to 1 position. It will store the sum till here. Then I is equal to 2. Basically I equal to 2. We will store the sum till this here. Now similarly for the next element, what will be the sum? 3 plus 2 plus 1, which is basically 6. Right? Now, suppose if basically I have a subarray from this to this, how do I calculate the sum? I can basically I have a subarray of this. So how do I calculate the sum? Guys, please speak. So sum of 1, sum of 2. Basically, I have a sum of 1 and sum of 2. So I just need to subtract from sum of 2 to sum of 1 only. And we will get the value of our difference. Basically, the total sum till that particular point, which is basically this 6 minus 1, which will be 5. And if I see the sum of this subarray, which is also 5, I can see that logic. So initially this for loop is to store the value in the sum array, which is a cumulative sum till a particular index. And we will be utilizing this sum array. Earlier in our previous approach, what we were trying to do is, just a second. These two for loops are same. What in the next for loop, we are trying to calculate the sum. Instead of trying to calculate the sum, now we are trying to basically utilize this sum array here instead of using this for loop. So that's the change from first approach to second approach. And that will reduce overall time complexity from order of n cube to order of n square. But in this case, space complexity will increase because we took one array, which is sum array, which will store total n plus 1 elements in it. Because initially we already declared with the one element and it will total again append n number of elements. So total number of element it will have will be n plus 1. So overall space complexity will become order of n because of the size consumed in this logic. Any question? Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes, Dishan, no
Yeah.
questions from me. Yes, I got the solution.
Okay. Okay, then let's move to another approach where we will see like whether we can optimize the at least space or not. Because currently our solution is having order of n square time complexity and the space complexity is order of n. Now in the third approach, we will try to optimize the space also to order of 1. So instead of maintaining a subarray, what I can do is I can have a variable called sum, and I can store the sum in that particular variable, and I can try to just compare with that sum is equal to k or not. And then we will basically try to solve the problem. So what is the logic here is, let me basically zoom this out the code so everyone can see. Everyone can see, right? So in
Yes,
this,
Nishan.
what we are trying to do is we have two for loops. We will basically again doing the same thing, like we are trying to traverse all the subarrays using these two for loops. But instead of calculating the sum earlier, like in the earlier we calculated into a different array, which is called sum array, a cumulative sum array. Now, instead of calculating into a array, we will be using one variable, which will be basically initialized at every time whenever we are trying to consider a new subarray. So in this case, here, this will be our start point for every subarray. And we will initialize our sum variable here. And whenever we traverse for that particular subarray, we will calculate the sum for each of the element in that subarray, and we will try to compare it also. So it will basically it will consider all the possible subarrays and try to compare it with the targeted value, which is k in our case. And if it match, then we will basically increment the count variable and we will return the count. So this logic will basically reduce the space complexity, and the overall time complexity will remain same, which is order of n square because of four nested loops only. So which is basically trying to generate all the possible subarrays for this problem. Any question? Guys, are you able to understand the approach? Because we have discussed till now three approaches. One is basically a brute force approach, which will take 3 for loops. The second approach was cumulative sum approach, where basically we will be taking a sum array and we will storing all the sum, and we will utilizing that sum array to calculate the difference of a particular subarray, and we will comparing it with the k value. Now in the third approach, where we are basically saying it's a no space approach, we will be taking one variable, and that variable will be initialized at every subarray initialization, like which is the starting point of a subarray, and it will basically update the sum variable with the all when we traverse that particular subarray using the another for loop, which is for and in start, which is less than array length. And then we are trying to compare with the k part. So these are the three solutions, which is like we basically reduce from order of n cube to order of n square with space complexity. Then we are trying to reduce from order of n square space complexity, order of n square time and order of n space to order of n square time, but space becomes order of 1. Now we will try to optimize the overall things again. Is it possible to optimize? Yes, it's possible. But we can optimize the time complexity. If we are trying to optimize the time complexity, it's possible. We might need to take extra space, which will increase our space complexity, but we will be able to reduce the time complexity in the final approach, which we are going to discuss. So this approach is a hash map approach, where basically we will be storing our sum in the hash map itself. Whenever basically we traverse, we try to calculate the sum, we store in the hash map and try to utilize that information. So let me go through with the basic algorithm which we use to solve this problem with the order of n time complexity. So we basically initialize a hash map, and initially in the hash map there are only one element with a key 0 and the value 1, which is by default we initialize. because we will be using this value for further cumulative, basically to calculate further logic or to basically produce the further logic into the solution itself. And then we took two variable, one is sum, one is count. So sum is basically, it will represent the sum to a particular point when we traverse the array. And count is basically our output which we need to return, where which basically indicates how many sub-arrays are possible with the sum k. Now I already written a basic simple comment here. So we will go through with this and then we will try to go with the logic part. So for every sum encountered, we will also determine the number of times sum minus k has occurred already. So when we calculate a sum, like when we trying to traverse the array and we are calculating the sum till the point we have traversed, we will see whether the sum minus k exists in our hash map or not. If it exists, we already have a count that how many times this particular sum minus k has been occurred. And based on that, we can find out how many sub-arrays are possible. This is the key point here, which is derived from the second approach, where basically we use the cumulative sum, where we basically try to sum j minus sum I, which is equal to or k or not. That was the logic in our second approach, the cumulative sum. This solution is derived from that approach only, where we are trying to basically find out the sub-array sum through the cumulative sum array. Instead of using that, now we are trying to use hash map and trying to reduce the overall time complexity by reducing it to a single for loop only. We will go through with the example because it seems a little bit difficult to digest the solution at the first glimpse. So we will try to go through with the example and then we will see whether we will able to digest the solution or not. Okay. So let me go through with the code first and then I will go through with the sample example also. So initially what we are trying to do is we take some array, and whenever we are traversing, we are basically finding a sum value here for every array. So suppose if I have this array only 1, 2, 3. So every time the sum will be updated. Initially the sum will be 1. Then we will check in the hash map that 1 minus 3. So k is 3, right? And the sum is 1. So is it possible that 1 minus 3 hash map minus 2? But there will be no value in the hash map for minus 2 part. So this condition will fail. So it will not go into this loop. But now in this condition, what we are trying to do is we are trying to check whether the hash map sum, which is hash map of 1, sum is equal to 1. So hash map of 1, whether it exists or not. So it does not exist. So initially the value is 0, because this is basically it means default value is 0 in case if it does not exist in a hash map. Then it try to add a 1 in that value and it try to make an entry for it. So now the hash map earlier has only this one or 0 key value 1. Now it will have another element which is basically 1 key with 1 count. Similarly, it will go for again in the for loop with the 2 part. Now the sum becomes 3. So sum minus k becomes 0 and hash map of 0 is existing, right? With the value of 1. So it will basically increments the count with the value of this. So now count become 1 only. And we will move into the next line where we will check whether the hash map of this sum 3, hash map of 3 exists. No, it does not exist. So we will make one more entry of 3 with value 1. Similarly, when we move to the next element, which is this, the sum becomes 3 to 5 plus 1, 6. So sum is equal to 6. Now sum minus k is 3. Yes, 3. And 3 exists in the hash map. Yes, it exists. So the count will become, again, it will increment the count again. Now, when we basically try to return the count, what will be the count? 2. So output is 2 with this logic. Hope you are able to understand this particular segment of a code. Now we will take another example, which is little bit bigger, and we will try to go through with the same logic again. So this is our example. Like suppose I have an array this much big, and we are targeting the sum k is equal to 7. So initially our hash map is initialized with 0 key, 0 as a key and 1 as a value. This is by default. Now currently the sum is equal to 0, count is equal to 0. Everything is clear. Now our for loop will run. So initially we will take the first element. Now the num variable is equal to 3, the first element. K is equal to 7, which is given in the question itself. We will calculate sum minus k, which is 4. We will check whether this 4 exists in the hash map or not. No, it does not exist. It means now the sum, we will basically create an entry for the sum variable again in the hash map. So we created an entry here. This is our entry for the sum. So we entry the key will become the sum and the value becomes 1. If suppose the same sum when we are traversing this array and any point of time again the sum value becomes 3. So we just need to increment the count here because the key value pair is already existing. So we will just increase the count by 1 more. So then at that particular point of time, this will become 3:2. So 3 will be the key and 2 will be the value for the particular point at a time. So now we will move to the next element. Hello. Yes. Okay. So we will move to the next element. Let me just a second. Let me make it small so that everyone can see the logic also. Now we will move to the another element, which is 4. Now we will check what will be the sum by. Yes, Janet.
Can you repeat the previous iteration? You are saving the sum minus k in hash map or number itself?
No, we are saving the sum in a hash map, not sum minus k. Sum minus k is just to check whether the sum minus k value exists in our hash map or not.
Okay.
So if you see this logic, here we will see checking hash map of sum minus k, whether a sum minus k key is existing in a hash map or not. But when we are storing, when we are basically storing only this hash map sum. So we are storing only the sum part. So in this example also, if we try to see initially part is okay, right? Now when we basically traverse the first element, which is 3, and the 3 is when the sum becomes 3. Initially the sum was 0. So sum is equal to sum plus num of I, and num of I is 3. So sum becomes 3. Now we will check whether the sum minus k value, which is 7 minus 3 or 3 minus 7. Yeah. Which is 4 basically. So we will check whether the 4 exists in our hash map. No, it means we do not have any previous subarray whose sum is equal to 4, which will constitute into a resultant array, which becomes k is equal to 7. So now in this case, what we will try to do is we will make an entry of our sum value in the hash map. Similarly, when we traverse again, so suppose when we traverse this num is equal to 4, which is this element. So we with our total sum will become 3 plus 4, which is become 7. Now we will see the sum minus k is 7 minus 7, which is equal to 0. And the 0 value is already there in the hash map. So our count will increase. Now count will become 1.
Okay.
Okay. So try to relate with this logic only. The logic is very simple here. We basically traverse the element. We calculate the sum till a particular point. We will see whether any previous subarray whose sum is equal to sum minus k, whether it exists or not exists in a hash map. If it exists, it means it constitutes to our result. So we will increment the count. If it does not exist, we will basically make an entry into a hash map till that particular point. So that will be basically the sum variable. So we will make an entry of hash map sum with the key value is equal to value will be basically, if it does not exist, the value will become 0 plus 1, which is 1. If it exists, then it will basically use the existing value plus 1. So it will increment the count with the 1 more. So that will be the logic. Hope I'm at least able to explain this logic and you are able to understand the logic.
Yeah.
With this solution, we are able to reduce the time complexity from order of n cube to order of n. But we need to optimize the time complexity. That's why we have to increase the space complexity for this optimization part. So, but overall, if I see, we are successfully able to optimize from order of n cube to order of n, and the space complexity changes from order of 1 to order of n. That is perfectly okay when we are talking about the time complexity. So these are the 4 approaches to solve this particular problem. Now, guys, if you have any question, then I will answer. Else, we will move to another problem. Okay, tell me, is it a hard problem? Or is it a easy one? Or is it an average one?
I think the solution till the third approach we can get it, but the last one, with the hash map one, it is, I think, very difficult to
Right,
go all.
right. I
Yes,
can
yes.
understand. Yes. So for the fourth approach, I try to relate with the second approach, which was basically the cumulative sum approach, where we were what we are trying to do is we already have a sum array which basically stored the sum till a particular index. Like if we are talking about sum of I, it means it has a sum from 0 to I. When we talk about sum of j, it has a sum from 0 to j. But when we want to calculate a sum from I to j, I need to reduce that 0 to 1, 0 to I part. So what we try to do is sum of j minus sum of I. That will give me the subarray sum. That was the logic in the second approach. We are trying to utilize that logic here only. So when we say sum, when we basically making our entry of this sum, let me highlight here. Basically, when we try to calculate this sum variable and when we are making the entry into the hash map, so we are doing the same thing again. So at any point of time, we are making an entry of the sum value into the hash map. When we are saying this hash map of sum minus k, then we are talking about, okay, now I need that particular subarray sum instead of having a sum of a 0 to j. I do not need that sum. I just need I to j. So that is the logic here, which basically try to signify the optimization part. It's little hard, I know. At least, like you cannot think directly in the interview around this approach. So that's why I try to explain all the 4 approaches so that you know all the 4 approaches. And if you remember at least second one, you might come to the fourth one also.
In the fourth approach, the one thing I couldn't digest is ki how come the hash map sum minus k will make the continuous, matlab how are we making sure कि वो continuous array का part है, वो थोड़ा digest हो नहीं रहा था, but ठीक है, I will check it later.
Right, right. Even like just try to basically run the solution in the LeetCode itself. I will be sharing the link in the group itself. So try to go with all the approaches, try to see what will happen in the when you try to submit the first solution. It will give you the timeout. When you try to submit the second solution, it will give you the timeout. When you try to submit the third approach, then also it will give you the timeout. So the LeetCode is taking all kind of input. So only the fourth approach will work for the submission part. So you can try after this session, you can try. Yes.
Hello. I have
Yes.
one doubt. Like, if you want to save the index, from which index to whatever index the sum is present, like 1 to
Right.
4, how we will do this in this approach? Hash map wala, fourth one.
Yes. So hash map approach is like as I explained in this example. If you see this example, so what we are trying to do is we are trying to create a hash map of our sum value. Like we know the sum variable will be updated when we trying to traverse every element of a array. So initially the sum is 0. So we have a entry 1, which is 0 is a key and 1 is a value. Now when we traverse our array, we encounter the first element, which is 3. Now the num is equal to 3. And when we calculate the sum, which is 0 plus 3, sum is equal to 3. and hash map does not has any entry of this. So we will create an entry for every time whenever the sum changes and it does not have an entry. We try to create an entry into a hash map, which gives you a basically give you a sum array from 0 to I, 0 to J, 0 to K. So similarly, whenever you are traversing from I to J, I and J to K, so it is giving you a sum of from 0 to only, like 0 to K only. It is giving you a complete sum in the hash map itself. But when you try to search sum minus K, it is trying to check whether is there any previous subarray whose sum is equal to sum minus K, which can constitute to a K equal to 7 sum. Because when you are trying to consider the current value, you need to check for the previous subarrays also. So whether any previous continuous subarray is constituting to your solution. If yes, then only you increment the count, else you do not increment the count. That's
हाँ
the
वो
logic in the program.
that is fine, but जैसे 3 + 4 is making 7, right? तो
Right.
मुझे इंडेक्स चाहिए, लाइक 0 to 1 मेरा सब एरे है, ये 0
Right.
to 1 वाली वैल्यू में कैसे स्टोर करूँ?
No, that is basically the second approach. If we are talking about the indexes position, that is the second approach where basically we use a cumulative sum array for the, and then we are trying to calculate the sum array using the indexes only. The hash map approach is saying you do not need to worry about the indexes because the sum variable will always have the continuous sum, right? So when we are traversing an array and the sum variable is having a continuous sum, so what we can do is we can utilize that information while storing into the hash map. So that's the logic here.
Okay. ठीक है.
Okay, just try to go through like with the paper pen, take some bigger example, try to go through with the code also, try to write the like what is happening at every iteration. That will give you a glimpse of the idea, like how do we come with approach 4 from approach 2. That could help you.
Okay.
Any other question? No? Okay. Then let's move to then another problem. So this is the problem statement. We will go through with this. So the problem statement says given an array of integer nums, which is sorted in ascending order, and we need to find the target integer in that sorted array. So how will we find it? So like the normal approach could be like I can have a for loop from 0 to till the length of an array, and I can compare if that array of I is equal to my target, then the element I found, and I can return like true or false. Or even if we need to return the index, we can return the index also. That could be my first approach. But we are not utilizing the information that array is sorted in nature if we are using the for loop for iteration. To utilize the information that array is sorted, we need to know about the binary search. What is binary search and how it basically reduces the time complexity. Like for the for loop, the time complexity will be order of n because we need to traverse from from the first element till the last element. In the worst case, this is possible that the target element is the last element in our array. So total number of iteration will be n. So overall time complexity will be order of n if we use for loop. But in case of binary search, if we use binary search, we can reduce the time complexity from order of n to order of log n. We will see more how we are going to do this. Let's go through with the example first. The first example says -1, 0, 3, 5, 9, and 12. So these are basically in the increasing order only. So the first element is the smallest element in the array. Last element is the largest element in the array. And now the target is 9. So suppose if I need to search 9 in this array, how will I search? So if we know about the overall algorithm around binary search, we will be able to search very quickly using the order of log n runtime complexity. we will see how to implement a binary search. So this is the algorithm for binary search. Hope everyone can see this. So what we will do is we will take two pointers. One is left pointer, one is right pointer, which is basically variables in our programming language. We can take two variables. One is called left variable, one is called right variable, which indicates that left variable is indicating array front, right variable is indicating array end, and then we try to see whether we are able to search our target in that particular array or not using these two variables. So the first is basically we will see at any point of time if let left variable exceeds right. It means we already traverse the complete array. We do not need to search again in that particular array. So that will be our base condition. So when we say while this one, while left is less than equal to right, it means we are just targeting that particular array, and once we are able to traverse the complete array, we do not need to worry about it. Like either we find it or not find it, it's okay. Now the second thing is how do we search using the binary search? So in binary search we always try to calculate the pivot element. And to calculate the pivot element, normally, like there are multiple ways. Like people say one way is basically array length divided by 2. That could be your pivot point. Then another people say, okay, you have already left and right. You can directly write as left plus right divided by 2. That could be your pivot element. But there are cases where this left plus right can lead to overflow. Like suppose if left and right both are integer and left is equal to suppose 32765 and right is equal to 32766. When you try to add these two numbers, it will overflow the range of an integer, which will lead to a unknown result or the failure of our code. To prevent that, what we will do is we will use this logic that start plus or we will say instead of start we will say okay left plus right minus left divided by 2. This could be our mid or pivot point. Now how does this help from overflow? We will see, like suppose if left is 32765 plus 32766 minus 32765. Basically, when we basically do this minus part, it gives me 1, right? But if we are just adding these two variables, then it will overflow. So that's how it helps from overflowing. That's why we use right minus left here to calculate the pivot point. Any question on calculating the pivot point? No? Okay. So once we find the pivot point, we will see whether the center element of an array is our target or not. If suppose it's a target, we will directly return the index and we will say we are able to find our target. But if we are unable to, like the element is not equal to the target point, the middle one. Now we will see whether we should move to the left side of our array or whether we should move to the right side of our array. And to confirm this, what we will do is we will compare with the value of our pivot with the target. If target is bigger, it means the pivot is basically the smaller element and all the right element will have the result only. Else, if the target is smaller, it means the result will be found on the left side. If the target is bigger, it means the result will be found on the right side. We will see the implementation of this algorithm and then we will do the dry run also to understand the same algorithm again. Okay. So this is the implementation. Let me take an example from the above one only to explain the things like -1, 0, 3, 5, 9, 12. And the target is 2 here, which is not there, right? So in this array, if we basically try to find, first of all, let's take left, which is equal to 0. Right will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right will be by 5. Okay. Now the middle will be 5 divided by 2, which is 2. Suppose if I call this pivot, so it will calculate 0 plus 5 minus 0 divided by 2, which is 2 in an integer. So my middle is basically 2. This is an index. Always remember this is an index in the array. So this is my 2 index. Right. Now I will compare whether 3 is equal to 2. No. So it means this condition fails. The first one, if condition. Now we will see, okay, this the middle value is greater than target. Yes, it's greater than. It means all these values, because the array is sorted, so all these values are greater than the center element. And if the center element is greater than target element, it means we cannot find this value in this array. Now we need to check in the left side of a array, and to reduce the to reduce from the complete array to the left side of a array, earlier the right was 5. Now what we can do is we can say right is equal to mid minus 1, which is 1. Now this will basically give me the array like this, minus 1 comma 0. And when we calculate the mid again, we will see the element does not exist and the condition will break, and we will say the element does not found. So we will return minus 1 in this case. This is the first try run. Now, if we basically try to search, suppose 12 in this array, the target is 12. We can take the target as 12, and we will try to do the dry run again. So initially the mid is 2. We will see, okay, 3 is equal to 12. No, but 3 is smaller than 12. It means we cannot find our answer on the left side, because all the element on the left side will be smaller from the mid element, because the array is sorted in nature. Now we will see, okay, then we need to search in the right side of our array. So to search in the right side of our array, I need to increment the left value instead of reducing the right value earlier we did. So to increment the left value, what we will do is mid plus 1. Mid was 2. Now left will become 3. So array becomes 3 to 5. This one, 5, 9, 12. And I will try to search in this. So when you calculate next time, when you calculate the mid, it will become 5 plus 3, which is divided by 2, which is basically 4. So this will be my next mid, 9. I will check whether the 9 is equal to 12. No. 9 is smaller than 12. Yes, it means our answer will not be found on the left side of the array. So these two elements will again ignored. Now the only element remain is 12. So in the next iteration of this while loop, we will compare 12 with the target value. Whether it is equal? Yes, it is equal. So we found. So we will return the pivot value. So this is my pivot. Pivot is basically the index of this. So that is the main logic behind the binary search, and overall time complexity for the binary search is order of log n, because at every iteration our array size reduces to half. Like for example, when we take an array of size 6, in the first go we either neglect the left side or we neglect the right side. In the second attempt again, either we neglect the left side or we neglect the right side. So every time the array changes from like n to n by 2, then n by 4. So this is going to be, when you calculate the time complexity using this logic, then the overall time complexity become order of log n. So this is binary search, and we use binary search on a sorted array because the sorted array has a property that every element from a particular index will have like all the elements from a particular index from that left elements all from a particular index will be smaller. All the element from a particular index to the right side will be in increment order. So we are using this property to reduce the overall time complexity for our problem. Any questions?
Nishan, that pivot finding left plus right minus left wala thing we are doing because it will go beyond integer limit when the
Right,
digits will be high.
right.
Acha.
Because there
Okay.
are some test cases where it can go outside the range and which will lead to failure of our program.
Okay. 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 ठीक है.
Any other question? No. Okay. Now we will try to use the binary search to solve our problem. Like we know, like if we are directly, if we have given a sorted array, we can search using the binary search. Now we will see what kind of problems our interviewer can ask on a binary search. Suppose, let me basically put another problem here. So this is a problem statement. Just go through with this. Like a integer has been given to you. Suppose a integer is a, and you have to ask like calculate the square root of a particular integer. But there is a condition when you are basically calculating the square root, it might be possible a number does not have a exact perfect square root. So you need to calculate the floor square root. Floor is basically the square root which is possible but in on the lower side only. So for example, 11, when we try to calculate the square root of 11, we will give output as a 3 because when we calculate 4, it is above side. 3 is lower side. So floor means lower side part only. So this is one problem where we can use binary search to figure out the solution. Try to think how will we use binary search here. So suppose if somebody asks you, just let me write also. What is the square root of 9? So suppose if I take initially the number start from 0 or 1, we can take anything. Like suppose if I start take as a 1. So I can check from 1 to 9. This is it shorted in nature. To calculate the square root, if I take middle of this and I put logic like this, if middle of middle is equal to the number a, then it's the perfect square root. And if it's less than a, then basically it means we are at the lower side and we can store that information and we will try on the upper side. So with this logic, we can find the square root for this problem. I hope at least you are able to visualize the solution now. Now we will go through with the solution also. Okay, this is the solution. It's simple and sweet. So we have basically low, we have high. Instead of taking high as a, what I tried to do is I took high as a by 2 because any number, you can take any number. For example, if we take 11, okay, we take 11. If we divide by 2, the number becomes 5 in an integer. So the square root of 11, either it could be this or it could be lesser than this only. It's never possible that the square root of this number could be higher than this number. So we can, this is very normal math and we can use this and utilize this in our solution. So I basically try to utilize this, like I initialize low with 1 and high with this 5 and then try to search whether a perfect solution exists or not exists. And based on that, we will try to return the value. So I will go through with the code. So this is normal binary search code. There is no extra logic here right now. This is normal binary search logic. I calculated the mid. I try to check if the particular element exists, then it's a perfect square. If it does not exist, then we basically either increment the low or decrement the high. But in the worst case, what will happen when an element does not have a perfect square? I need to utilize this low variable because I am talking about the lower part of a square root instead of higher part. Then I will use this lower to find the square root here. So suppose if a is greater than or equal to low into low, it means this is our answer. But if this condition still does not exist, it means we can basically reduce the low to low minus 1 and we will see if that condition satisfies, then answer is low minus 1. If basically these two cases will make sure you get the answer. But even for the so there are some cases where the half of that particular number will be square root, then this case will work. That is just a default case. Let me make it small so that you can go through with the complete code. If you have any question, feel free to ask. Overall time complexity is order of log n to find the square root of a number. Space complexity is order of 1 because we do not take any extra space other than the variables. When we say space complexity, if we are taking any data structure like array, set, dictionary, hash map, then it increases the space complexity. Else it will be order of 1 only. Questions? Hello. Hello.
Hello. Yes, Nishant. Means no questions.
Okay,
Nishant,
then. Yes, Kiran.
what I'm saying जो while वाला loop है low is less than high, अगर हम उसको low is less than equals to high कर दें तो फिर ये नीचे return a